found the Alpha. The pack should disperse.
Welcome back, everyone, to part 2 of the Mediocre challenge run. So, the only comment that I actually got on the last video was someone suggesting just cutting out all the parts where I'm fast forwarding, and I couldn't agree more. Most of that was filler stuff that really was unnecessary, and the only reason why I was leaving it in was sort of as proof that I didn't cheat in between any of the clips. But well, let's just be honest here. This is a challenge run I've made up myself. It's not really a speed run of any sort, so I don't know, if someone really insists that I've done something off screen that I shouldn't do, I can always give them the full footage if they'd like to see it. But otherwise, this is just something I'm doing for fun. So yeah, we'll cut out all the filler parts. There's a few things that I've still left in that I've sped up, but not much. Like in this particular episode, I'm showing the stuff that I'm doing at the blacksmith. But whatever. Anyway, first fight of the video, we're going after the Alpha Doshaguma. So he gets to be the first thing that I've really fought from start to finish with the longsword. And some of my old school muscle memories coming back, but some of the combos I used to know just aren't quite working right. So it's been a little bit of a learning experience on this one. I probably should have spent some time in the training area practicing a little bit before jumping straight into this mission. But whatever. You live, you learn, and hopefully you keep on to the current weapon long enough to actually figure out how to use it properly. But probably should have cut this part out, where you go through the whole cinematic of the Doshaguma being sucked into the sand pit. Anyway, I'm gonna pause talking for a second until they're finished doing that.
The guild authorizes you to hunt the Alpha Doshaguma and restore peace to Canalfa Village.
Yeah, that didn't take very long, so now I'm going to realize that I don't actually have a food buff anymore, and step over the hill and pull out the barbecue spit. This is actually a pretty nice little addition to the game, being able to cook pretty much anywhere. It sort of takes some of the prep stuff out of it, but let's be honest, at this point, with the ability to instantly transport back to your camp, and there being virtually no use for farcasters, all that sort of stuff, might as well just go ahead and put a few more convenience features in and take out some of the other things, which realistically keeps you in the world more, which seems to be the focus in this game, keeping you out in the actual open world, doing stuff pretty consistently. So, hey, whatever helps keep the game flow going. There we go, there's some Helmbreaker, or at least an attempt at it, and he just kind of smacks me back out of the air. But as you'll see going through the fight, I slowly start to remember some of the things that I was doing, and actually get a little bit better with the longsword as it goes. This guy's not particularly challenging anyway. Like, Doshaguma, he was a lot harder in the beta simply because of the fact that he didn't have that great of gear, but it still wasn't that much of a challenge. But I don't know, as we're coming to find, the really hard fights aren't actually going to come until post-game. So now that we've had Title Update 1 come out, I'm really anxious to see how hard it's going to be I'm really anxious to see how hard it's going to be to successfully get through high rank Zoshia. Not too worried about the low rank version, but high rank should be a trip, because one thing I haven't quite figured out what I'm going to do yet is, let's say I have two carts in the same fight. I think what I need to do is go ahead and prep up at least 2 weapons ahead. Like, have that many in the inventory so that if I die twice on the third attempt, I can rotate to a third weapon. Either that, or I could just go ahead and count that as a fail, quit the mission, restart it, and then have to go back to camp and start all over again. I think the latter one sounds a little bit more punishing than absolutely necessary yet, so I think I'll just have to plan ahead and actually keep enough weapons in my inventory that I can always swap out at least 2 different ones. I don't have that yet, so we'll see how fun it goes trying to farm up the mats to get that going. Alright, well, I'm going to pause commenting for a second. Oh, yeah, never mind. By the way, the cart count, decided to carry that over from video to video, and the exhausted weapons list. So as a reminder, we had 1 cart in the last video, And right now, greatsword's on cooldown. So I'll be back in just a minute.
Get a load of this claw. Looks like it's moving to a new area. I'll ride with you. I'll just hop off for now.
The lightning has them amped up. Might be able to use them as a trap.
The ring there. I didn't like that.
Alright, well, one thing that is staying true with this whole limit on not using the absolute maximum upgrade for a weapon is that the fights are taking substantially longer. There's a couple fights in this game that take me about 15 minutes, but most of those are end-game fights against relatively high-level tempered monsters. Some of the fights in my original playthrough the first time through took a little while, but that was because I just didn't sit down and farm up the materials to get the highest version of a weapon. But this dude definitely didn't take nearly 15 minutes the first time around. So that whole restriction on not having the max rank weapon actually is at least going a little bit towards slowing things down. So far the difficulty is not spiked up all that much, but that will probably come in time when we start getting into the more high-end monsters. I would imagine the armor restriction is actually going to start playing a big role in how many carts I have relatively soon. Because it's not too much longer before we start hitting some harder animals. Anyway, see you in the next fight. Alright, so maybe not the next fight. I did decide to take a little bit of time in the training area to try to remember some of the moves. Like, I couldn't actually remember how to do the special sheath. I couldn't remember really how to do the foresight slash. And your dodge attacks are sort of core to what you're actually supposed to be doing with a longsword. It's not only some of the flashiest, coolest stuff that you can do with it, but those are the things that actually enable you to get some of your strongest hits in and chain your combos together, just sort of bounce back and forth at the high end of the spirit gauge. So, I don't know, I had to play around a little bit just to try to remember it. So, let's see if this helps me in the next fight. Here's just an ultra fast forward showing some of the different weapons that I make. That way, if anyone's curious what all I've actually put together and currently have sitting in the stash, they can see. But that's all this is. It's only going to last for a couple seconds.
Look good? Perfect. Okay. Alright. What are we making today? Yeah. Anything that's right? What? Ready to work. Alright. I'm ready to work. Look good. Alright.
Alright, so the second fight of the video begins. Duna. It's not a fight I particularly enjoy. I feel like it takes a little while to do. It's a cool concept, but to be honest with you, about half the apexes I don't really enjoy. Not a super big fan of Duna, not a super big fan of Jin Dahad. I will say though, I guess all four of them, under normal circumstances, Duna is basically zero threat. In these particular circumstances, as you'll see whenever I start getting a few hits, he's doing a decent amount of damage. See, like, that's a pretty solid hit from Duna in this version. First time around, he really wasn't that big of a threat other than his giant belly slam attack. But I don't know. He probably won't be too big of an issue. I've gotten a lot more comfortable with the longsword at this point. Starting to get some of the combos down and get back into the swing of using the weapon. But there, I've failed to get the special sheath off in time. That's one thing that's going to be tricky with this, where it is a counter-based weapon. Actually getting the timing down for how early I need to be sheathing, or whether I need to just be trying to dodge out of the way. It's a little bit of a trick. Nailed it in Wilds, or not Wilds, but World back in the day, but it's been a little while since I actually played a version of Longsword. It took a little bit of thought, because in Rise and Sunbreak, I played around with it a little bit. It really doesn't take that much effort to get yourself out of trouble in that game because of the way wire bugs work. So you can play pretty sloppy and still be alright, even against some of the harder fights in the game. But in this one, with this particular challenge, I'm going to need to actually execute those dodges and counters really well in order to avoid stuff like that. Being fly swatted out of midair. Still, this is a good fight to practice with it. Duna's attacks are all highly telegraphed, so other than just having a little bit more hold in the timing than what you would normally expect, it shouldn't be too bad to deal with him. Or at least I thought it wouldn't be too bad to deal with him. Turns out he actually hits pretty hard at certain times, and can relatively easily catch you in a combo attack if you're not careful. So just about the time I was starting to get comfortable with the longsword again. It's time to move on to the next weapon. So, cart count is up to 2. Now the greatsword and longsword are exhausted. And let's see what the next weapon is in the list. Looks like it's sword and shield up now, which is fine. It's actually a pretty fun weapon. The only problem is I haven't really sat down and tried to get things upgraded as well as possible. So I'm bouncing back and forth between the two, just trying to look and see what will probably benefit me the most in this particular fight. And given the fact that it's Duna, I decide the affinity is not going to outweigh the basically downgraded water attack on it. I'm sure the straight up raw difference would actually make the other one probably a little bit better when the affinity plus the little bit of water damage that would actually make it through combined together. But I decided just to stick with the non-elemental one for now. The only reason why I'm also including the Balahara one in my equipment set is just to be sure I don't accidentally switch to something that's not a sword and shield. So remember, I'm trying to keep both weapons set up to be the weapon that I'm supposed to be using. I actually had one person comment that, well, not they didn't comment, they just sent me a message talking about it, that one thing that might make this interesting would be to start actually actively having to kill anything that gets involved in the fight that's not the main target. So let's say while I'm fighting with Duna, if that Lalabrina had followed me in here and started attacking while I was fighting with Duna, I have to stop fighting with Duna and kill the Lalabrina, then move on. I think that's a cool idea, but I'm going to sort of stick it in the pocket for now because that might ramp the difficulty on things up just a little bit too much. And some of these maps, I could see that having the potential to turn a fight into a very, very, very long fight. But I don't know. We'll see. Could be a fun way to add in a little bit of extra challenge if, when I hit higher rank, it turns out that the parameters I put in aren't challenging enough. Alright, so at first I'm really just going to be kind of hacking around with the sword and shield because I haven't used one in a while. But it's not a hard weapon to get used to. It's a beginner weapon. Everyone plays with it at some point, more than likely. Like I don't know too many people that have just skipped straight past at least testing out sword and shield. It's a really straightforward weapon, and even not necessarily playing it optimally, as long as you're being pretty aggressive, you can still get good DPS off with it. So it's not terribly difficult to get some fun things going. And it'll be interesting to see how long I manage to get this one to stick with me before I have to rotate it out to another one. I suspect it'll be a little bit because it should be a while before I have to face off against anything else that's actually terribly difficult, which will be a good enough amount of time to not only get some upgrades in, but to potentially get enough of the sword and shields built that I might be able to actually optimize on what it does best, which is element or status. Right here, I'm just playing around with it, trying to remember which combo was which. So it wasn't so much that I was trying to fight an invisible enemy as it was that I was trying to refresh myself a little bit more than what I had the opportunity to just warming up with Duna.
If it finds our base camp, we're in trouble.
Right! Let's corner it!
I'll put the materials I gathered in your item box.
That veil protecting me is made of water and fluid. We either destroy the veil or find a way to target its body directly.
Love a challenge. drive it off.
Well, this is also something I didn't really think about doing the first time around. What I thought with Duna was trying to use those pillars to pull some stuff in the water and push him out of the water. I don't know why I didn't think about trying that the first time around, but it didn't occur to me. And now the fight's over. Wasn't really that much of a threat other than me just screwing around and trying to get used to the longsword and costing myself the opportunity to get to play with it for a little while. So, we're over on Sword and Shield now. So, what I'm going to do is pop up some of the feed of me going through and building a few things at the smithy. And we'll do our recap of what else happened in this particular episode before stopping and moving on to the next one. So far, we have 2 carts from Kongalala and Uthduna. And that means we're locked out from the greatsword and the longsword. Not terrible things as far as number of feints go so far, or carts, but definitely could be doing better. This is about the point, by the way, in the background where you see me realizing that I really should be focusing on building as many different weapons as physically possible. So next episode, I've got to clear up a couple optional quests before I can move on to the next set of main story quests. Probably going to do a little bit of farming to try to get materials to actually expand my weapon repertoire, so that if I do end up having multiple feints in one run, I can actually have a full range of backups, and also not just be stuck using just whatever I happen to have on hand. A good selection may make the difference between carting again or making it to the next fight without a cart. Anyway, that'll be all from me this evening. Hope you've enjoyed yourself, and remember, if I can beat it, so can you.